Hi YouTube, this is Evie. Welcome back to my channel, and today I have another video for you all. Today we're going to be talking about, should you tell your family that you're kinky, and how do you actually tell them? This is something that I personally struggled with. This is something that a lot of my friends have struggled with, and there are so many different opinions floating out there about this particular subject. Do keep in mind that, again, this is going to be a very opinion-based video. Everybody has different relationships with their family, with different family members. You all have different levels of comfort and how much they would want to be out or not out with their family when it comes to actually being in a kinky lifestyle. So really just kind of use this as a framework or like some kind of inspiration for maybe some thinking that you should do about deciding if this is the right choice for you to make or not. I obviously do not know everybody's family structure, and this is coming mostly from my own experience with my own family and just my own general life knowledge, and that may be different from yours, and that is perfectly fine. Just do whatever you think feels right. The very first thing that you're going to want to consider is, do you really need to tell your family? And should you really tell your family? Like I said, everybody has a different family structure, and some of those structures and some of those people within those structures are going to be better able to handle this information than others. I'll give an example here. My dad is a very argumentative person. He's a lovely person, but he is very, very set in his beliefs and very set in his ways. My sister is very much the same way, and I have distinct memories of when we would go on long car trips. My dad and my sister used to get in very knockdown, drag-out arguments, and it would be like hours worth of arguing. And there was one time when they got in an argument about if Satanism and paganism and all of these things were the same, and he adamantly believed that they were all evil and they're all the same and they should, not be allowed, and very set in his ways about those beliefs. He has very similar beliefs about tattoos and piercings and things like that. He thinks they're very unladylike and they're very too extreme, and he's just very conservative minded person, and I have basically known that he is not really able to understand BDSM. I knew no matter, how I would bring it up, he wouldn't really be able to understand or handle it, and he wouldn't really be in a place where he would want to understand it. So I've sort of decided that my dad is somebody who's never going to really know about my relationships and my lifestyle, even if other people know, just because I don't want to damage the relationship I have with him now. I know it would fundamentally change the kinds of things that we're able to talk about. I know it would change our relationship, and I don't want to do that, so I've decided to not tell him. And I think it's important that you evaluate, your own people in your life in a similar way. Are they very argumentative? Are they super fundamentalist religious? Are they very, very conservative? Do they have very strict, sex negative views? All of these things are going to make it very complicated and very difficult to have a positive relationship once you have, opened the Pandora's box of talking about kink with your family. And at the same time, you should also be very wary about talking to family members who have any sort of leverage or control over you. And this is not to say that, if you live with your family that they have control over you and that you should stay secret and hide from them, because that's not what I'm saying. But if you have a more negative relationship with your family, or at least if you feel like you don't have a very positive one, and they pay for your car or your schooling or the roof over your head or your food, or they support you in a significant way, and they have sort of negative outlooks about, BDSM, or they're very controlling about your life, or they don't want to understand you or anything like that, I would probably not tell them. The last thing that you want to do is give people in your life who don't respect you leverage over you and a way to control you. And it is very oftentimes that when people decide to talk about their experience in BDSM with their family, that they go wee woo, my daughter's in abusive relationship, but we need to save her, and we need to do everything we can, and lock her in the house, and blah, blah, blah. And they'll try to cut you off from your friends, and they'll take your car, and they'll do all this crazy stuff. It has all happened. Like I just got done reading an article from somebody who was a dominant, who had a 24/7 slave who lived with them. And when their family found out, they were completely convinced that they were in an abusive relationship, took away their phone, and ordered them to stop talking to their dominant. And they broke up with that person. And that kind of thing can definitely happen. If your BDSM relationship is really important to you and you're in a position where your family may not be able to understand that, I wouldn't risk it. That is just my opinion, though, and that is how I would personally handle it. And as always, you should remember, regardless of the relationship you have with your family or with anybody else, your health and safety and your security is the #1 priority, and it always should be. If you have a family that is not very tolerant, that's not very open and trusting and understanding, just try to fly under the radar. Like, for the most part, and hopefully this is true, you're not going to be in a position where your family's going to have complete control over you forever. If it means sacrificing a bit of openness in order to, preserve your sanity and preserve your safety, to not talk about BDSM with your family, just don't talk about it. Like, I think it's way better to have to try and hide and conceal something for, 3 or 4 years than it is to try and, like, do damage control and risk losing relationships and risk the roof over your head just to be able to, be open about this lifestyle. And again, I am not trying to say that you shouldn't tell your family, you should never tell it. I just think you have to be in a really, really, like, good, structured, like, healthy relationship with your family in order to have this work out successfully. Of the people I know who have told their families or that their families have, found out and they've maintained a good relationship, it has been because they already were open, they were already trusting, they already had a mutual level of understanding and respect as an adult child to a parent, as opposed to, a parent who still conceives of their child as needing their protection or needing to baby them or whatever. If your parents don't really understand you as being your own individual adult person yet, going to be really difficult to convince them that you are in a healthy, safe, sane, and consensual BDSM relationship. Now, let's say you have had that conversation with yourself and you have decided that, yes, I am in a healthy relationship with my family. It is important to me that I talk about this with my family, that I'm able to be open and honest, and I want to be able to call my sir when we're at dinner, and I want to be able to maintain some of my protocol when we're at my family's house. And I have decided I want to have this conversation with them. 100%. Cool. Awesome. Congratulations. I am, like, sincerely happy for you if that is the case, because it is not as common as you might think that people are in a position to be able to tell their families about this sort of lifestyle. The best thing you can do is bring it up in person. Don't do it over text message or email or anything else. It is a personal thing, and while I don't advise making it a super serious conversation, it's a lot easier to have a healthy, empathetic conversation when you're doing so one-on-one versus over a phone call or over text message. I think it's really just going to give you better results. Like I said, try not to make it too serious. Your family will probably end up being very anxious and worried if you tell them, I have something very important to tell you, because your parents are either going to think you're getting married, you're pregnant, you have cancer, or somebody's dying. Like, at least in my family, that's how it worked, because my parents are really like, wee woo, anxiety about everything. And they're just gonna probably leap to conclusions and they're gonna think this is way more serious than it needs to be. It's much easier to have this conversation if you're doing so in a casual and lighthearted way. Now, when you actually have this conversation, what do you bring up? I probably wouldn't bring up the details of your relationship. They don't need to know your protocol. They don't need to know the last great flogging scene that you had. They don't need to know how much being in rope bondage turns you on. They don't need to know any of that. It's kind of like talking about your sex life in a lot of ways. Your parents don't need to know what your favorite position for anal sex is, but they may feel comfortable knowing that you are in a safe sex relationship And that is really all I need to know. So just limit it to the very, very basics. I would go over, what BDSM is, what BDSM is not. Don't bring up 50 Shades of Grey, by the way, because you just don't want to go down that rabbit hole, and that'll kind of derail the conversation most likely. So just probably don't bring it up. I would definitely make sure that you talk about the importance of safety and consent in BDSM. Make sure that they know that this is not something that you were looking for approval on. This is not something you were asking permission to do. You were just informing them of a choice you have already made. This is not something that they need to have any input on. This is not something that they get to have any say in. You are just saying, hey, family member, this is what I do during my free time when you're wondering what I'm doing, and I say that I have a bowling league, but I definitely don't go bowling. Whatever it is that it happens to be, just do so. Make sure you emphasize that you are being consensual, because that is the most important thing in BDSM, that you are being safe, that you are doing so in a healthy way, that you care about your partners and your partners care about you, and that you are happy. Because I think really, if your family is healthy at all, they just want to make sure that you're happy and healthy. And while they may not always understand and agree with how you achieve that healthiness and that happiness, and they may never be in a position where they're able to understand that, I think eventually they'll go, it's kind of weird and I don't really get it, but she's happy, so really, what more can I say about it? And hopefully they'll be understanding. They may even start to make jokes about it. Also, as well, if this is something that you're trying to just, tell a specific family member and, not your grandparents and uncles and cousins, make sure that the person that you're talking to knows this in confidence, knows that something is very personal, and that you're trusting them with this information. Say something like, so and so, I'm really glad that you listened to me, and I'm really glad that we were able to talk about this. Please don't tell grandma about this. She doesn't need to know. Don't bring it up during Thanksgiving. This is something I'm trusting you with. So please don't talk about it with anybody else, okay? I will tell anybody else if they need to know. And it's really a lot better if you can do this proactively rather than reactively. Like, you don't want rumors to spread in your family, so that's why it's important to go ahead and be like, hey, I will be the one to tell people if they need to know. You don't have to tell them for me. It's okay. Another great resource you can give people in your life that you are, wanting to talk to about your BDSM relationship or just your interest in kink with is a book by the title of When Somebody You Love is Kinky. This is specifically designed for people who are family members of those who are involved in the community and don't have any experience with themselves, or don't know the first thing about it. I think it's a really helpful way to talk about it with your family if you're not able to really talk about it in detail yourself, or if you're really uncomfortable having that detailed level of a conversation, because that book kind of handles it all for you. And hopefully when they read that book and you talk with them, they will understand. However, they don't understand, they will at least accept that this is happening, and they will accept and realize they still love you and they still care about you, even if you're into these weird things. And that's basically it. If you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, please feel free to leave that down in the comment section below. I really do love hearing from you all, so if you want to interact with me, the best way to do so is either going to be down in the comments below or on Instagram or Tumblr. Links to that will be in the description box, as well as everything I mentioned in this video. If you guys have any video suggestions, please feel free to leave those as well. If you enjoy this channel and you want to see more videos like this one, please do consider supporting me on Patreon. Every dollar really does help, and it helps me make more videos like these. Until I see you next time, hope you have a great rest of your day and a great rest of your week. Bye-bye.